studio's a mess.
Make sure the mic is all plugged in. Cables, that guy's always making mistakes. What a mess here with all the coffee. You know, all I've been hearing lately is Frank. Frank's coming. Clean the studio. Frank's coming. Get the toilet paper. Frank's coming. Get the coffee. I'm the guy that has to do all the work. Frank's coming. But, I'm gonna clean the studio. I better get going. Let's get some music on. There. Well, Frank. Welcome to the studio. And welcome. That's what you would say, probably, eh? I'll try to be like him. Kind of like that, eh? Now you guys know who does all the work back here. Not that bad guy. He's just over the campsite all the time. Well, I got the studio cleaned up. Now I know what they do when I'm camping. Now I know what goes on behind my back. They play around in the studio. I knew things were moved around, but now I know who it is. It's that Fix-It guy. He kind of looks like me, but he's kind of like my brother, I guess. Well, welcome to the Saturday Sex Show. So in case you don't know it, my name is Vern, and today is a special show. I even brought my earmuffs. I got my earplugs, so I can leave everything on. I should not be making any mistakes today, because today we have Frank on. So where's Frank? Is Frank on the chat here? Do we see Frank yet? Are we waiting for Frank a little bit? Well, I don't see Frank's image on the chat yet. So in case you guys don't know who Frank is, I'm going to pull in this screen here. This is a YouTube screen, display screen. Yeah. Let's go over here. There it is, Frank. This is Frank. Frank is the creator, producer, maker. Frank is the individual that made this site, Watchtower Help Admin. And I've been using Watchtower Help Admin for some time on the channel. It's kind of like there's a section of it if you go to the About file. If this is your first time on the channel, you go to the About file. There's not a whole lot on Frank. One of my earmuffs fell out. But it talks about Frank. I don't like those things. Anyways. I'm just going to try the mic. Well, I'll just wait for a bit here. But anyways, on the Frank's video, on his site here, description, helping the world to better understand, study, and discuss the Watchtower. So that's why it's called Watchtower Helper. He has Watchtower Help Club. Now, he says, please click the link below to see our blog articles. That's all it says here. Now, this site, he says he joined it March 15th, 2021. It's had 50,000 views. When you click Watchtower Help Club here, up comes, I'm going to change my display here, and up comes this blog, Watchtower Help Club. And we kind of found it a while ago. I did go to the contact stuff and send an email out, and sure enough, Frank got back to me. And I was looking at this, all his videos are on here. There's a lot of subjects, and you go to the bottom here, you click for their complete list of blog articles. This is what I use a lot. for my waking up, and for actually hosting, on this show, on various shows that I have. I use this stuff to cover subjects of interest. And look at the list. The list is long. Now, once we get Frank on site, we can ask him the question, but how long has he's been doing this? Now, from what I see, he started doing this about 2011, putting articles up here. And he's updating them continually. So we don't even know this guy. He's anonymous. He tells us his name is Frank. And I'm going to go back to the log site to see if Frank's on yet. Is Frank on yet? Oh, there's Frank. I'm here. Hello, Frank. Welcome to the show. This is a great privilege, Frank, to have you on the show. None of us really know a whole lot about you, who you are. Well, I explained a little bit, that you worked in Bethel, in the New York Bethel, but I didn't give too much away because you're Frank, and here you are. So if anybody has questions, you can ask Frank. Frank, as far as I know, would like to stay anonymous, as well as a number of other excellent creators out there online that are helping us. We think of the Be Free 2023, that's all anonymous. That's all done by, we don't know who. As far as I know, XJWs are behind all of this. So Frank, I know, is an XJW. He was serving in the New York Bethel, and I believe he was on the writing committee, and you can certainly tell by a lot of the articles. So thanks for being on the show today. This is a great privilege, Frank. Thanks for allowing us. Oh no, sorry about that. I thought I had my mic off for some reason. But anyways, thanks, Frank, for everything. And we're going to move on to, I'm going to move out of this screen into my studio screen. Now, in case a lot of you online here, I got to get the right studio. This is my studio screen, but this is a Saturday sex show, and this is where we cover a lot of information, new information. In fact, Frank has even commented. We ran the Anunnaki and we ran some other stuff, and Frank is out there. He's keeping us on the straight and narrow. So I got a good idea who Frank is. Frank's like an elder. I would consider him an elder on the outside that's helping us to understand that we were all hooped. And he does it in a very funny and nice way. Now, in case you guys don't know, I also have other studios. I run the Night Talk Show. This is a show I run on Tuesday nights, and that's at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And this show, of course, is on Saturdays. And I do run news shows, news updates. And so anytime there's new news updates that come out, we do try to get them out to the audience. And watching Watchtower is another group out there that we talk about. Now, in case, Fix-It was complaining there, I seen that. I seen how he talks about me. Here's where I'm at, a lot this summer. Our summers are very short here in Canada, so we take advantage of getting out and just enjoying things. And I know while I'm out camping, well, Fix-It, I don't show a lot of people where Fix-It goes, but this is where Fix-It's studio is. He runs out of the basement at the Watchtower. This is what the Watchtower gives him, this place for free. And they fly him back and forth. They got so many air miles. They fly him back out there to get the synopsis on what's going on in the XJW community. So Fix-It goes in and has board meetings with them and plays that game. But me, I like to be out camping. And this is where I like to be. But today we are here. We're here. And we're happy to be here. Now, before we start the new movie that Frank made, before we start that, I want to show you his very first show. And if we go over to YouTube here, I'm going to go over to Frank's site. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. It helps us creators to grow our channels. Now, we're going to do the Song of the Governing Body, but we're not going to do it on Frank's site because I kind of played with the song a bit. But here it is. Here's the song. I better put my earphones on so I can hear it. captions off? YouTube won't be doing it though. It's not, I'm pulling it from a link or a YouTube link. Fair enough, fair enough. Well, I hope I had fun with that this morning, so I hope you did, Frank. But that's about it. We just give them the moon when it gets right down to it. So very well done. I want to actually look over some of these videos a little later on if we have time, and look at some of the work that went into them. We'll probably do that right off your site, Frank. It's a little easier. But for right now, I'm gonna pull up the video, and where am I here? I'm gonna go into my email and pull up the link for the new video. That's what we've all been waiting for. Now, here's the YouTube link. So I guess I just click on that. And go up. CC subtitles. They're on, I think.
The Jehovah's Witness religion symbolizes their beliefs.
There we go. So I'm gonna put it up full screen here and disappear, and then we'll play the movie. So this is a 30-minute movie. So enjoy the movie, folks. There's a lot of lessons in this movie. I loved it. We'll talk about it later. So just enjoy the movie. Grab your coffee, your popcorn, wherever you are, and enjoy and look at all the hard work Frank did. So we're really happy Frank's here with us to enjoy his production for the first time. This episode 4. So here we go. And whoop, I'm gone. And I'm going to even turn my mic off so I accidentally don't laugh. So here we go.
The Jehovah's Witness religion symbolizes their beliefs as a watchtower built on solid rock. Is that true, or is it a house of cards, precariously perched on questionable, frequently revolving interpretations? Find out in our tell-all, where we examine their doctrinal structure from all sides to see if it will stand or fall. The leaders of the organization claim that their doctrines and policies rest on their God Jehovah, and His Word, the Bible. Our site has discussed the existence of this God, and the veracity of the Bible elsewhere. Tonight we're going to take a top-down approach. Our experts, having spent years studying the matter, have constructed this image of their beliefs, representing how each of its doctrines and policies relies on an intricate construction of one belief supported by, and dependent upon other, more fundamental beliefs. They tell us that at the pinnacle of the Watchtower's house sits the governing body. What they say, how they interpret their Bible, is what Jehovah's Witnesses are constrained to believe. As we'll see, everything else really rests atop this central notion. True or false? Is it God's organization on earth, or a cult? You decide as we present JW Reality TV, Tell All. Hi, I'm Frank Lee Anon, and I'll be your host and moderator for this discussion. Joining us are the world's favorite JW couple, Stephen and Gloria Morris, whom you'll all know from the wildly popular series, JW Reality TV. In addition to bringing us up to date on their lives, they've agreed, and have come prepared, to go through this examination of the Watchtower with us. Welcome, Stephen and Gloria.
Thanks, Frank. I'm happy to be here and have this chance to set the record straight. This will be a great opportunity to give a good witness to all your viewers, especially those who may have gotten the wrong idea from our reality show.
Hi, Frank. I'd just like to clarify something. In your introduction, you referred to us as a JW couple. I am not a Jehovah's Witness. I studied for a while, but left after a sister in our congregation was disfellowshipped for saving the life of her daughter by allowing her to have a needed blood transfusion.
Also, we're not a couple anymore.
And that may be the last true thing he says on this program.
Okay, I see that the claws are bared already. Also here to help are your children, Caleb and Sappho. They're off stage, with the list of quotes you've given them, ready to look them up and read them for us, in order to keep things moving along.
Hi. We've got your lists, and we're ready.
Yeah, and we've got all the Bibles, and my cell has JW.org loaded, and ready to search.
Thanks, Caleb and Sappho. Stephen and Gloria, we're all aware of the friction between the two of you due to this religion. When we last saw you, divorce was in the air. Can you give us an update? What's up with you two?
The divorce is still a work in progress. But I'm happy to report that I'm now living with the new love of my life, Sandy. And she's been a wonderful second mother to the kids.
Well, that's great, Gloria. We're very happy for you and Sandy. What about you, Stephen? Are you still with Helen Jean?
No. Our divorce is held up by Gloria not having committed adultery. That attorney's wife saw the show and called me to verify Gloria's story, and I couldn't ignore that. Then Helen broke up with me because she can't be going with a still married man.
Well, okay. But now Gloria is with Sandy. Is that the same Sandy who studied with you, and was disfellowshipped for allowing her daughter to have a blood transfusion?
One and the same.
So, not to get too personal here, but you say you're living together, so, are you two now a couple?
Yes, we are. After separating from Stephen, Sandy and I spent a lot of time together as fellow outcasts from the Watchtower. We discovered a mutual attraction and that we were gay.
So, Stephen, can't you get a divorce based on that? Isn't that considered adultery?
No. The Watchtower tells us that homosexuality is porneia, a sin. She'd be disfellowshipped for it if she'd ever been baptized. But the Watchtower says that it's not adultery, not a basis for a scriptural divorce. Caleb?
This is from the Watchtower, January 1st, 1972, under questions from readers. While both homosexuality and bestiality are disgusting perversions, in the case of neither one is the marriage tie broken. It is broken only by acts that make an individual, one flesh, with a person of the opposite sex, other than his or her legal marriage mate.
So, homosexuality is bad enough to divorce one from Jehovah's organization, and thus incur everlasting death, but not bad enough to divorce one from their spouse?
Correct.
It's yet another example of the Watchtower making up rules that aren't in the Bible and ruining people's lives thereby.
Can I say something?
I fear there's no stopping you. Go ahead, Sappho.
This sounds so archaic. The Watchtower should keep their nose out of our bedrooms and just let people move on with their lives. If people aren't happy together, they shouldn't be forced to stay married and be miserable. And that's a decision no one else should be allowed to make but the couple themselves. And, since this topic has come up, I have an announcement to make, if I may.
Go ahead, Sappho.
I think I might be gay too. April and I have formed a very close relationship.
Oh, Sappho. No.
You go, girl. Be true to your nature. Don't make the mistake I did in going against my nature by marrying a man like I was supposed to. Though I'll always bless the fact that it got me 2 great kids.
You see what your bad example has done to our daughter.
Wow. Lots of bombshells in this tell-all already. Stephen, let's turn our attention to you for a moment. Throughout this season we've seen you really struggling to try and answer the questions of your kids. Let's take a look.
Well, these are all good questions, and I don't have all the answers right now.
How can a 7,000-year period have a morning and an evening?
It must be symbolic.
Symbolic of what?
I don't know.
But who decides what is scripture?
That's a long story. I don't know, Galib. That's a good question that I don't have an answer to right now. Well, if I had my Watchtower publications, I'm sure we could find an answer. That's a good question, but we can't second-guess God. I've explained it as best I can without the publications.
Stephen, what's your reaction, seeing that now? Can you tell us why it was so difficult to answer their questions?
It was entirely my fault. I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. But tonight I have the jw.org website up on Galib's cell phone, and we've also got a direct line to the governing body for any questions I can't find answers to on the site.
Now, we're going to devote the bulk of the program to examining whether the position of authority the governing body has assumed is justified, but first, we want to take a brief look into why that even matters. What impact does this belief have on their followers, the Jehovah's Witnesses? Going off script, I'd have to say we've already seen evidence of that impact with the issue of divorce. But, let's take a look at 4 of the most controversial aspects of the Watchtower religion. Their ban on blood transfusions, which critics say has cost the lives of tens of thousands of witnesses, including children. Shunning, which has led to the breaking up of families, and tragically, suicide in some cases. The 2-witness rule, which prevents them from taking any action in cases of the sexual abuse of children unless there are 2 witnesses to the crime. And finally, to the subjection of women. Our independent panel of experts, consisting of Bible scholars, theologians, and a professor of comparative religion, are standing by to render an objective judgment on whether these policies are required by the Bible or rest, instead, on the word of the governing body. Stephen, we'll let you go first, with the first item on our agenda. Could you explain for us the Watchtower's position on blood? Why are Jehovah's Witness parents denying their children life-saving blood transfusions?
Because God's word tells us to. Jehovah gave us this commandment in his law. Galib?
That's from Leviticus 17:14, where it says, "You must not eat the blood of any sort of flesh, because the soul of every sort of flesh is its blood. Anyone eating it will be cut off."
But that didn't just apply to the Jews. Way back in Noah's time, just after the flood, Jehovah made an everlasting covenant with Noah and all of his descendants, which, of course, includes all of us.
Genesis 9:4 says, "Only flesh with its life, its blood, you must not eat."
Finally, in Christian times, the apostles clarified this for us, as a law Christians must follow.
Acts 15:20, "But to write them to abstain from things polluted by idols, from sexual immorality, from what is strangled, and from blood."
Interesting. Your response, Gloria?
I'd first like to mention that I've been given a limited time to respond. So, I want to refer our viewers to the Watchtower Helper's 8-part series of articles on this subject for an in-depth detailed debunking of what my ex-husband has just said.
Yes, and they also have a video on this subject called The Near-Death Experience of Anthony Morris III, which is worth a watch. A link to these, and anything else we'll mention on this program, will be included in the description below. Or visit watchtowerhelp.club.
Their blood ban is not based on the Bible, but rather, just like everything else, it's based on the words of the governing body. How else do we account for their allowing the transfusing of blood fractions? They allow every bit of whole blood to be transfused as long as it is cut up first. Where does it mention blood fractions in the Bible? Nowhere. That's pure governing body, all the way. Does God hate it when blood is consumed? Of course not. God created leeches, mosquitoes, vampire bats, and other animals that cannot survive without their blood diet. And the Bible says we can learn about God's qualities through nature. Sappho?
That's from Romans 1 verse 20. For his invisible qualities are clearly seen from the world's creation onward, because they are perceived by the things made.
Of the three scriptures they turn to for support, Leviticus can be thrown out immediately. It's from the Mosaic Law, which the Watchtower admits is not applicable to Christians.
In the February 1st Watchtower of 2010, pages 11 to 15, it states that Christians are under a new law, the law of the Christ. Galatians 6 verse 2, the former law covenant given through Moses to Israel came to an end when Jesus' death fulfilled it.
And, if you read the whole chapter in Genesis, you'll see that the everlasting covenant was only about God's promise not to flood the earth ever again. It had nothing to do with the prohibition against eating flesh with life still in it. Judaism has always understood this to mean that one must not take a bite out of a living animal, flesh with its life in it. If it was meant to prohibit Gentiles from consuming blood, then we wouldn't read the following.
Deuteronomy 14 verse 21, you must not eat any animal that was found dead. You may give it to the foreign resident who is inside your cities, and he may eat it, or it may be sold to a foreigner. For you are a holy people to Jehovah your God.
An animal that was found dead wouldn't have been properly bled, yet the Bible says that a Jew could sell it to a Gentile to eat. So, obviously, God had no qualms about Gentiles consuming blood. Besides, the witnesses don't follow any of the other rules given to Noah, such as being fruitful and multiplying to fill the earth. In fact, they discourage witnesses from having children. They just pick on this one rule in order to get the free publicity of headlines to keep their religion in the minds of the public at the cost of the lives of their followers' children.
What about Acts? That verse is pretty clear. Abstain from blood.
That's taken out of context. It was just a temporary situation in which the new Christian religion was trying to keep from offending Jews. It wasn't a law binding upon Christians for eternity. This is clear from Paul's letter to the Corinthians, in which he says Christians are free to eat anything. Jesus also said that nothing that enters into a person can defile him. He also showed that even God's law could be broken when following it would cost a life. The Sabbath was created for man, not man for the Sabbath. Finally, the Bible says that the only laws binding upon Christians are to love God and love their neighbor. There's no room there for a law against blood transfusions.
All right, now that we've heard from both sides, it's time for our judges to render their verdict. Judges, does the Watchtower require the ban on blood transfusions? What about the Bible? Does it require that Christians deny their children life-saving blood transfusions? Thanks, judges. Since we have judged the blood ban to rest on the words of the Watchtower, rather than on the Bible, we can now precariously balance the policy atop the governing body in our house of cards. Our next item is shunning.
The Bible clearly states that you should avoid those who cause divisions.
That has to do with the basic teachings of Christianity. It has nothing to do with disfellowshipping people just for disagreeing with the ever-changing doctrines of the Watchtower. Witnesses are shunned, to this day, for having questioned former doctrines of the Watchtower, even though the Watchtower now acknowledges those doctrines to have been wrong. If they were wrong, then they weren't the truth, or any part of God's law.
Can you give us an example or two?
Well, an extreme example is that witnesses died who needed an organ transplant back when the Watchtower said transplants were against God's law. Now, they say transplants are a personal decision, but those people are still dead from following the Watchtower's lie. And there are couples who were disfellowshipped for having oral sex back when the Watchtower said that was against God's law. Today, they admit that the Bible doesn't have anything to say about a married couple's sex life, and it's a decision between a husband and wife. But those couples are still shunned, not for breaking any law of God's, but for not following the Watchtower's erroneous law.
Judges, your verdict on shunning. So, their practice of shunning those who dare to think for themselves rests not on the Bible, but upon the governing body. Moving on to the issue of CSA and the two-witness rule. Stephen, what justification can there be for failing to report sex crimes against children unless there are two witnesses to the crime?
Caleb?
1 Timothy 5:19 says, "Do not entertain an accusation against an elder, unless it is brought by 2 or 3 witnesses."
Paul also tells Timothy about keeping a list of widows whom the congregation is to provide for. That young widows must marry and have children, and to drink wine instead of water. Does the Watchtower also advocate those things?
Well, no. They don't keep a list of widows or provide for them. And they discourage having children because the time is short and needs to be devoted to the ministry.
So, they pick and choose which advice to follow, putting all the decision-making, once again, in the hands of the Watchtower, in other words, the governing body. The context of this verse is from a letter Paul was writing to the young man Timothy, advising him how to act in his role of responsibility amongst more elderly men. He tells Timothy to treat them as fathers. This advice would only apply while he was still young. When Timothy was an old man himself, he wouldn't still regard all the elders, many of whom would then be younger than him, as fathers. This shows that the advice was limited to a specific set of circumstances at a particular time. It isn't something to be used to excuse elders from reporting child abuse to the authorities.
Besides, can I say something?
Go ahead, Sappho.
They act on the word of one witness when adultery is the issue. It's unfair for them to require 2 witnesses when a child is harmed.
Good point. Judges, what do you make of this? Our next point is the subjection of women. Stephen.
Once again, it's straight from the Bible. Caleb?
Ephesians 5:22-24, "Let wives be in subjection to their husbands, as to the Lord. Because a husband is head of his wife just as the Christ is head of the congregation, he being a savior of this body." In fact, as the congregation is in subjection to the Christ, wives should also be to their husbands in everything. In 1 Timothy 2:11-12, "Let a woman learn in silence, with full submissiveness. I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man, but she is to remain silent."
Paul also said it was best for a man to never touch a woman. Does the Watchtower endorse that view? Seems like I've seen you touching Helen, your fiancée.
Let's not get personal.
In the first place, the letters to Timothy are known to have been written by someone other than Paul, probably after his death. In one of his real letters, Paul does not silence women who are praying or prophesying, 1 Corinthians 11 verse 5, making the letter to Timothy all the more suspect. The idea that women were to remain silent is also contradicted in Paul's letter to the Romans, where he mentions
Phoebe, our sister, who is a minister of the congregation that is in Cenchreae. Romans 16 verse 1.
So, a woman served as a minister in Paul's day. Yet the Watchtower says that women cannot be ministerial servants. A woman also served as a judge over all Israel.
Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time. Judges 4 verse 4.
Yet, governing body member Jeffrey Jackson stated, under oath, that according to the Bible, women cannot be judges.
But biblically speaking, the role of judges in the congregation, it lies with men. That's what the Bible says, and that's what we endeavor to follow.
Can you give me the reference for that?
Yes. In the scriptures,
that is judges being only men. Not elders, but judges being only men.
And governing body member Samuel Hurd has gone on record as saying that women can't be in positions of authority because their brains are too small.
You know, scientists say that the cranial capacity of a woman is 10% smaller than that of a man. So now this shows that she's just not equipped for the role of headship. Her role is one of subjection to the man. Her role is that of submissiveness, and that means that she should recognize that she is a woman and be glad to be a woman. Never want to be what you are not equipped to be.
Yet, the person with the highest documented IQ in history is a woman, Marilyn Vos Savant. While the Bible affirms that women served as ministers, prophets, and judges, historical facts and present-day reality shows that women have also served admirably as mayors, governors, senators, vice presidents, queens, prime ministers, and presidents. Not to mention CEOs. So, the facts show that it is simply untrue that they are not equipped to handle such roles. In other Christian religions that value the Bible just as much as the witnesses do, women serve as ministers and priests. So, obviously, it is the word of the governing body, not the word of God, that prevails in this matter.
Judges, your verdict. I'm told we have a minority opinion amongst the judges. At least one of whom believes that the Bible does indeed require women to be in subjection to their husbands, but not to the extent the Watchtower practices, and that it should not be used to keep women from positions of authority elsewhere. Given that verdict, we will add this policy to the shoulders of the governing body. The Bible has been called a fiddle upon which any tune may be played, so it's not surprising that the Watchtower can come up with some sort of justification for their policies from the Bible. But, as we've seen, the scriptures give questionable, or shall we say, at best, feeble, support to these controversial policies, while a better case can be made against them. So, we might ask, why are there still Jehovah's Witnesses, who abide by these policies? The answer lies in the governing body, that group of men who have styled themselves as God's spokesmen on earth. Witnesses will believe whatever they say, no matter how implausible, or how tenuous its connection to what the Bible actually says. All of the policies we've discussed thus far rest, ultimately, on the authority of the governing body. Stephen, what gives them this authority to decide the meaning of Scripture, often at odds with mainstream Christian teachings, and to impose the penalty of disfellowshipping for questioning their pronouncements?
They are the faithful and discreet slave appointed by Jesus over his domestics, and charged with serving us the proper spiritual food at the proper time. We must obey them just as we would obey Jehovah and Jesus.
All right, these then are the foundations upon which the governing body's authority lies, that they are the faithful and discreet slave, and that Christians must therefore obey them. What is meant by the faithful and discreet slave?
This comes from the Bible book of Matthew. Galib?
Matthew 24:45-47, who really is the faithful and discreet slave, whom his master appointed over his domestics, to give them their food at the proper time. Happy is that slave, if his master on coming, finds him doing so. Truly I say to you, he will appoint him over all his belongings.
The rest of our program will be devoted to examining what support there is for them being this faithful and discreet slave. But first, let's look at the other card that supports the witnesses' view of their governing body. The "we must obey" card. Even if it were to prove true that the governing body is the faithful and discreet slave spoken of in the Gospels, where are the scriptures that require our obedience to them? Stephen.
The Watchtower has stated that witnesses should avoid independent thinking, and trust that whatever the governing body says is right, even if it doesn't seem right to us. We must listen, obey, and be blessed.
It's very telling that you ask for a scriptural reference and he quotes the Watchtower. That's because nowhere in the Bible does it tell Christians to obey religious leaders or hang on their every word as if they were God themselves. It only tells us to obey the higher authorities, which the Watchtower has identified as secular governments.
Wait. We've had a call from the governing body, who are watching. They've pointed us to the October 2023 Watchtower, Study Edition, page 10. Jehovah asks us to be obedient to those taking the lead in the congregation. And it references Hebrews 13:17.
Yes, but the words, in the congregation, were added by them. They're not in the Bible, not even in their own New World Translation. Other translations also just say, obey your leaders, or those who rule over you. These words cannot apply to the governing body, because on their own site, jw.org, under frequently asked questions, they state, unequivocally, the members of the governing body are not the leaders of our organization.
Thanks, Sappho. And I have some more points I would like to add. Jesus never said to obey men or blindly believe whatever a particular group of men said. Everything he said about following men was negative, the blind leading the blind. And, as recorded in Luke 12 verse 57, he asked, "Why do you not decide for yourselves what is right?" With the implication being that we should all do exactly that. Paul made a point of not consulting the apostles, who had supposedly spoken directly with Jesus. He relied instead on his own personal vision of Christ and his own opinions. He even flubbed his nose at the Jerusalem elders, whom the Watchtower claims were the first governing body, when he defied their letter about abstaining from meat that was unbled and or used in sacrifice to idols. Finally, the Bible commends those who examined what was told them, rather than accepting it unquestioningly.
Now, these were more noble-minded than those in Thessalonica, for they accepted the word with the greatest eagerness of mind, carefully examining the scriptures daily to see whether these things were so. Acts 17 verse 11. Also, 1 John 4 verse 1, Dear friends, do not believe everyone who claims to speak by the Spirit. You must test them, to see if the Spirit they have comes from God. For there are many false prophets in the world.
And I would add to that, 1 Corinthians 7 verse 23. You were bought with a price, stop becoming slaves of men.
Well, given all that, I think we can confidently cross out the "we must obey" card, marking it for later removal.
But, if you remove that one card, right now, the whole edifice would collapse.
You're right, Galib. And it seems that the Bible does not require us to obey the faithful and discreet slave. But, what if it's true that what they say is truth from God? If the governing body really fulfills this role of the faithful and discreet slave, we may want to listen to them, and obey them, even without being required to do so. So, maybe this single card can somehow support the importance of the governing body. That makes this card pivotal. All of the cards below this point serve to support the contention that the governing body is the faithful and discreet slave. In part 2 we will see if they really do.
Well, what did you guys think of that? That was quite the episode. Excellent work. I'm going to go over to the chat line here, and now that the show is complete, it'll take a few seconds from when I'm talking for the show to be complete on your end. So, but it's awesome. Fantastic, awesome. Frank, if I can be frankly upfront with you, Frank, this really helps us out as a XJW community. It helps us to, for waking up. And for me as a person online, speaking to people, I don't have all the answers and I don't claim ever to have all the answers. But, and I'm not saying your show has all the answers either, but together we are able to dissect the indoctrination that the Watchtower has put into each of us. And this indoctrination, as we've experienced for many of us, it's very, very deep. And there's multiple layers that we have to take out. That was a fly on my camera. Sorry about that. Now, if I get a Pence moment here, just let me know in the chat. Anyways, yeah. So what I was saying to Frank online there is that this is just great information, and you're doing a great job in helping all of us in this XJW community. And I think now is a really good time for all of us in this community, because there's a lot of people coming out, a lot of people leaving the organization, and they're confused, angry. A lot of people are angry. I was angry. I was there. And it doesn't matter if we leave, because I left the organization for 10 years and I never fixed any of the indoctrination that got put into my mind. And the indoctrination, it goes deep. It's little things, like the truth. By telling ourselves that we have the truth, by continually telling yourself that you have the truth, it's a form of programming, and it's a form of it's a masterful way of programming. And this is what the Watchtower has done since Russell's day. They all believed they had the truth, as if there's any so-called magical truth. So far, I haven't been able to find one magical truth. The only thing that I think is true is what Galatians says, is to fear God and find good, the love in people. So God says that those that fear him and love, that's all he's looking for. He doesn't say there's a religion. Even in the Bible, it doesn't say there's any Christian religion or anything like that. It just says practice love. And you don't even have to be religious. You could be spiritual and go out into the wilderness, enjoy the campfire, and sometimes that's where we can find a lot of solstice, is just out in the wilderness, listening to the birds and finding out what's real. And that's what I've been doing lately, is just experiencing other parts of life, stepping away from the matrix, as we would call it, and getting out of my thinking, just getting out of everything. And for some of us that works. For some of us, we need to be around people. So each of us are different. I have my good wife, and if you watch our camping videos that are coming up, she starts all the fires. I'm not good at that. She has more experience camping, perhaps, than I do. Even though I was a farm kid, raised on the farm all my life, and we went camping, but up here in Alberta, a lot of the farmers, they had motorboats, and we water skied, and we had a lot of fun camping. But we're going to go back to, we're going to take you guys back to the Saturday Sex Show. And here, it's a cool place here. I'm going to shut this background music off. There, it's gone. Okay, getting back to the live, getting back to Frank. Now, if you guys have any questions you'd like to ask Frank, we have time. We have until 3:30 on this show, and then we kind of tailor it off, because Rick Fearon has his show coming up, and a lot of us hop onto that show. So this is a really rare opportunity. So my question for Frank is, Frank, is this the first time you've been on a live chat? Now, we know you're anonymous. I don't know who you are. Maybe you've been live somewhere else. You don't have to tell us. But a live chat, is this your first time? And that'll take a while for you to give me the answer. I'm not just going to sit here and be silent. I'll talk about some other things. Now, I would like to go back, and I might do that on another show, but Frank was saying that there's a lot of his information on his blog that ties into this video. I'd like to tag them all. I think Frank will have them tagged perhaps on his description, so I'll just copy and paste out onto this video for anybody watching it. But Frank, we really like your work. Frank says, thanks to the voice actor who did the GB's voice so well in that one. So you had some actors in there then, Frank, is what I'm hearing. And what else do we have? Hi, Jane. Frank is saying hi to everyone. Yeah, Frank didn't know he was a big thing. He's a big deal. Producer, creator of those shows. There's thousands of hours. I don't know where you get the time to do this, Frank. And now here's a question that I would ask any creator, is what moves you to do this? This is a very specialized community, this XJW community. It's out of the whole world, it's very, very small. It's hardly recognizable. Jehovah's Witnesses, on the other hand, that's huge. That's out there. It's in the news every day. It's in the news. New stuff every day on that organization. It's created itself a really bad image. So I think having the word XJW in front of my title puts us on the outside of that religion. It actually says that we've had enough of what that religion is doing, what's happening in the media, what the media is exposing them of. So it's interesting. So Frank, have you ever been on a live chat before? And I know your channel, you might start doing that. I'm not sure if you want to, but we're certainly happy to have you on tonight. Frank says, I've felt I needed to atone for helping, for have brought people into the org. So you baptized some people maybe, brought a lot of people in. I wasn't good at getting people to baptism except my kids. But I blackmailed them. I said, you can get a car and a driver's license if you get baptized. That means you're responsible enough. And then they both got baptized and got their car and stuff. But then it wasn't the answer because it wasn't in their heart, right? It just caused them more problems. And, that's how we get our kids disfellowshipped when we do nonsense like that. And it was right about the time I left anyway. So my son and I had a chat and we left. We just quit going. So, I'm going to clear my throat here. Thanks to Mike Off and On, you didn't have to hear that. So now, Frank said he needed to atone for having to brought people in. A lot of us feel that way. That's why a lot of us, I guess, we get on these channels and we start talking to people. That's why I started. I don't have the talent that Frank has to put these movies together, but we all use our talents, what we have, in a different way, and we're all using it to help people. So there's my good wife. She just walked into the studio.
Make sure you hit the blue arrow at the bottom of your chat because Frank's answering your question.
Oh, the blue arrow at the bottom of my chat. How do I do that? Is there a blue arrow?
See at the very bottom?
There's just this shunning thing.
No, that's fine. So just make sure.
I brought this thing right bottom. I don't know. I'm still learning how to work all of this stuff. That's why my good wife is here with me, holding my hand.
It's Frank's first live chat.
Oh, it is your first live chat, eh? Okay, right on, Frank.
Frank
Okay.
also says that he felt he needed to atone for having brought people.
Yeah, I seen that point. Yeah. Okay, well, that's great. Well, Frank, we hope to have you on more. And if you don't want to do your own live chats, we'd certainly welcome you on. We show a lot of your stuff. We use a lot of your material. And my hopes are, and I don't even hope it, but because it's going to happen. And what's happening right now, real time, as we're speaking, there's hundreds of people leaving the Jehovah's Witness organization as we speak every day. The decline is a steep angle going down, down, down. And when you're dive bombing down that steep, when you were that high, like usually you level out and you level out like this. That's normal loss. But this is a deep dive. It's like just diving off a plane, like without a parachute is what's going on here. And they're going to go through the ground, into the ground, and go into the negative. as the members, it just starts depleting. So these channels, all these people leaving, when I finally decided to wake up, and it's a decision we have to make. We have to decide to. I didn't decide to look online. I was so brainwashed that I might see some, and I clicked online, and I think I seen someone online really angry, and I said, "That, you see, that's why I don't watch this shit." And that's what I said. I told my wife that. I said, that's why these apostates, they're a bunch of angry, and I wouldn't watch it. 10 years, I did not fix my mind. And so I don't believe, I know we're all angry, but so I decided on my channel, and if you look at some of my earlier videos, I did have angry bouts, but I'm getting over it. But as we wake up, and if we've truly woken up, we should be able to put that anger aside, and we should laugh. It should be something to dance about. King David was dancing and singing songs when he overcame Goliath, the giant, and that's kind of how we are. We're these little XJW community, and we're up against this giant who's hiding everything from the media, and they're telling the media this and that, and telling the Crown prosecutors this and that. But fortunately, there's some of us that are standing up on the outside that don't get their faces publicized, like in Montana, and those 2 victims that were abused, and they had to stand up and sue Brumley, the lawyer. They had to sue the lawyer, the Jehovah's Witness lawyer, for lying. And because Brumley couldn't prove that he wasn't lying, he got charged $150,000, and you never hear Brumley anymore. He's out of the light. He was the Jehovah's Witness big lawyer that brought all the freedom of speech in the whole wide world, the whole big world, like as if the whole big world needed him to do it, but he thought it was all about him. And the whole big world will get that done one way or another. Look at what all the other people have done all over the earth in freeing man from enslavement. So there's all kinds of examples. But the Jehovah's Witnesses, if they get one shot in, they like to look at us. So Brumley's out of the picture, and now the organization is using the Catholic lawyer, Matt Haverstick. And we ran some videos on that in our news. But it's interesting what's going on right now, real time, and so many people are leaving. We see so many new people on our chats. We welcome all of you. And we try not to be angry, but we know that anger is part of how we're scratching that record. We have this record out there, and we play it, and then we look at, we watch a video like Frank put out, and we go, wow. Like Frank, that's just amazing, because you gave both sides of it. You honestly gave both sides of it. Stephen, he even had the Watchtower online. You did a wonderful job of that video, and I think that video alone, I can't wait till part 2 comes out. So folks, if you haven't yet subscribed, we're at 3:30. We're going to close our show now. And if you haven't yet subscribed to Frank, go on to his site. I'm going to show it one more time on my YouTube background. Here it is. This is Watchtower Help Admin at Watchtower Help Admin. We'll put a link in this video description to make it easy for you to click on and go right to Frank's site. So thanks again, Frank. Thanks for being on our show tonight. Now, what I was going to say to everyone, you're probably wondering what's happened to Tony Morris, right? What's Tony been doing? Now, I haven't ran the videos on it, but Phil did from Blue Ribbon, Blue Envelope. Phil ran the envelope, opened the box, to show us where Tony Morris went. So I hope you guys enjoy the closing to this program. But until next time, keep living your life with love. Bye for now.
been all around the world, bought everything from diamond to gold. No matter where I go or what I buy, I'm still a country boy in my soul. So take me to the country. Nothing. Wow!